Who judges the gods? Not the mortals who cower before them. Not the kings who raise temples in their name. Not the heroes who beg for their favor. No, justice, real justice, has never been in the hands of the weak. It belongs to something older, something darker, something that does not forgive. They watch. They wait. And when the time comes, they strike. Alecto. Megaera. Tisiphone. The Furies. You were never meant to speak their names. They are not goddesses of mercy. They are not spirits of kindness. They do not listen to prayers, nor do they answer them. They hunt. They pursue the guilty beyond death, through the cracks of the earth, into the deepest corners of the human mind. The blood of the murdered cries out to them, and they obey with a vengeance so absolute, so relentless, that even Zeus himself cannot stop them. You think you know justice? Justice is blind. The Furies are not. They see everything, every sin whispered in the dark, every betrayal buried beneath false smiles, every crime hidden behind a throne. They do not forget. They do not rest. And when they come for you, there is no pleading, no bargain, no escape. They are the final word. The sentence carried out in shadow. The last thing the damned will ever see. They are older than the Olympians, older than the Titans, born from the spilled blood of a god ripped apart by his own son. They are the vengeance of the universe made flesh, the unbreakable law of retribution walking on clawed feet. They are the rage of the wronged, the voices of the silenced, the terror that haunts the guilty in their sleep. And yet, what happens when the hunters become the hunted? What happens when justice itself is put on trial? When the gods tire of their vengeance? When the world no longer fears them? When their names, once whispered in dread, become nothing more than myth? A storm is coming. The old ways are being forgotten. The guilty are walking free. But the Furies do not forgive, and they do not fade. They are waiting. And they are not done yet. Darkness. Thick and suffocating. The kind that clings to your skin, seeping into your lungs, curling around your thoughts like a whispered curse. Somewhere in the void, something moves. A breath, long, slow, shuddering. Not human. Not alive. The air is heavy with the scent of decay, of old blood and shattered oaths. Silence looms, stretching thin, too fragile to last. And then, there it is. The scrape of talons on stone. A whisper like wind through hollow bones. A low, guttural sound, something between a growl and a warning. They are here. Watching. Waiting. The Furies do not come in fanfare or golden light. They do not announce themselves with grand speeches or celestial trumpets. They do not arrive, they are simply there, stepping out of nothingness, their presence a black stain against the world. Alecto, with eyes that smolder like dying embers, her rage as endless as time itself. Megaera, wreathed in shadow, the taste of jealousy and betrayal curling on her lips like a bitter fruit. And Tisiphone, oh, Tisiphone, her voice is the last sound the guilty will ever hear, her hand stained with the blood of murderers, her touch a promise of suffering. They are not kind. They are not merciful. They are vengeance, cold and patient, moving through the world like storm clouds before the strike. They do not act on impulse. They do not waver. Their justice is not bound by mortal laws or fleeting morality, it is something older, something absolute. To betray, to murder, to spill the blood of kin, these are not mere crimes to them. They are offenses written into the fabric of the universe, and the Furies are the ones who correct the imbalance. You can run. You can plead. You can call upon the gods themselves to save you. It won't matter. The Olympians may rule the skies, the seas, and the earth, but even they tread carefully in the presence of the Furies. Zeus, in all his arrogance, did not dare to command them. Hades, the king of the underworld, did not claim dominion over them. They bow to no throne, answer to no power. Not even death can erase their purpose. They are not bound to the mortal world, nor the divine. They are something else entirely. Perhaps they were born from Nyx, the night herself, wrenched from the void to enforce the cruel symmetry of existence. Or perhaps they sprang forth from the blood of Uranus, drenching the earth as Cronus cut him down, a birth in violence, their purpose stitched into their very being before they even took breath. What does it matter? They do not care for their origins, only their function. They have walked through history, unseen and eternal, their names whispered in dread. It is the fear that lingers in the air when the guilty close their eyes. The shadow in the corner of the room that should not be there. The feeling, that feeling, of being watched, even in absolute solitude. They do not punish swiftly. That would be too kind. No, they strip the soul layer by layer, dragging their quarry through the shattered glass of their own sins. Guilt is their weapon, sharper than any blade, deadlier than poison. They make you feel it. They force it down your throat until it burns through your veins, until every breath is a confession, every heartbeat a cry for mercy. There is no mercy. Once they have marked you, it is over. You can drown yourself in wine, try to choke it down with laughter, bury it beneath meaningless pleasures, but the weight will always return. Heavier. Louder. Until you can no longer breathe. Until every waking moment is an echo of the crime. Until the shadows take shape, the whispers become voices, the faces of the dead press against the darkness, screaming for justice. And then, when the weight becomes too much, when the guilt has carved through bone and sinew, when the mind has unraveled beneath the pressure, that is when they come for you. Not to kill. Death would be a release. They come to drag you beyond death. To rip the soul from the body, piece by piece, to flay it raw, to make you feel everything you forced upon your victims. You will know what it means to beg. You will know what it means to shatter. You will know what it means to suffer eternally. This is justice. Not the kind mortals peddle in courts, not the kind gods dispense from gilded thrones. True justice. Old justice. The kind that cannot be bribed, cannot be reasoned with, cannot be escaped. The Furies do not forgive. And they do not forget. Blood spills in silence. It does not roar like thunder, does not crack like breaking bone. It falls in thick, glistening streams, painting the earth in red, sinking into the hungry soil. It seeps through cracks, slipping into the veins of the world, feeding something that should never have been born. A blade gleams in the dim light, still slick, still trembling from the violence it has just committed. A god is gasping, voice torn from his throat, his body shredded by the hands of his own son. The sky shudders. The stars flicker. And from the ruin of a father's flesh, they begin to stir. They do not cry out at birth. No screams, no gasping breaths. No mother holds them close. They rise, dripping, seething, raw with the agony of their creation. The Furies are born in the blood of Uranus, torn from his mutilation, forged in suffering, their existence a scar that the world itself cannot erase. They are the consequence of betrayal, the shadow that follows all things that are torn apart by greed, by violence, by the hands of those who should have never been given power. They are not daughters in the way mortals understand daughters. They have no childhood, no innocence, no moments of softness before the rage. They are the rage. The hatred. The curse that cannot be undone. The earth itself convulses as they emerge, shrieking without sound, their forms shifting in the darkness. Hair like writhing serpents, eyes black as the void, their hands outstretched, not in need, not in longing, but in purpose. The guilty will know them. The murderers will feel them. The traitors will see them in the moments before the end. They do not seek love. They do not seek comfort. Their mother is the earth, but the earth does not cradle them. It shudders beneath their feet, recognizing them for what they are, a force that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be soothed, cannot be undone. But some say this is not their true birth. Some say they are older, older than the sky, older than time itself. That they came from Nyx, the night. That before the stars were placed, before the gods fought their wars, before mankind took its first shuddering breath, the Furies existed. Shadows moving through the void, faceless, nameless, waiting for the sins of the world to give them shape. They are not an accident of bloodshed, not an echo of one god's suffering. They are necessary, bound to existence itself, a law older than Olympus, older than the Titans, older than fate. Nyx does not speak of them. She does not claim them. But she does not deny them either. And why should she? The Furies have no need for the approval of gods. They do not bow, do not obey, do not waver. Their law is written in the agony of the condemned, their justice is etched into the fabric of reality. They do not need a creator. They are. Uranus' blood may have stained the ground, may have screamed their names into existence, but the Furies did not begin there. They were always waiting. Waiting for the first betrayal, the first broken oath, the first act of destruction that could never be undone. Now they walk. Silent. Relentless. The stars shiver in their wake, the guilty freeze in their beds, their own heartbeat a hammer against their ribs. There is no pleading. No reasoning. The Furies do not care for why. Only that the crime was committed. And that it must be answered. Whispers scrape against the cold stone, 1,000 voices bleeding together, their breathless murmurs curling through the air like the last exhalations of the condemned. Names. 3 names. Spoken in reverence, in terror, in final, gasping pleas. Names that do not bless. Names that do not heal. Names that judge. Alecto. Megaera. Tisiphone. They are not names meant for kind lips. They do not belong in prayers, in lullabies, in hushed confessions of love. They were not carved into wedding stones or spoken by mothers to their children. These names were curses. They did not soothe, they struck like iron through the ribs, they clung to the guilty like the stink of old blood, they burned in the mouths of those who spoke them. Alecto. The unceasing. Her name is a blade that never stops cutting, a storm that never stops howling, a wound that will never close. Alecto is rage in its purest, deadliest form, anger that does not wane, fury that cannot be reasoned with, a hunt that never ends. She does not know peace, nor does she allow it. To invoke her name is to call down the wrath of the aggrieved, to summon the nightmare that wakes the guilty in the dead of night, drenched in sweat, their hands trembling, their pulse screaming, run, but where? Where can they go, when Alecto is the hunt, the hounds, the relentless press of fate snapping at their heels? She waits in the silence after a crime has been committed, in the still air before justice takes its first breath. Her name is the promise of reckoning. Her voice is the rustling leaves when no wind stirs, the shifting shadows in an empty room, the cold hand that grips the back of the neck before the noose tightens. Alecto does not stop. Megaera. The grudging. She is bitterness. She is resentment curdled into something grotesque, something alive. Megaera does not forget slights, does not let wounds fade into memory. She does not allow peace to settle over old betrayals, does not allow time to smooth the jagged edges of past wrongs. She keeps them sharp, keeps them fresh, keeps them bleeding. She is the whisper in the back of a traitor's mind, the gnawing thought that will not die. The weight in the chest of the man who took what was not his, the unease in the heart of the woman who destroyed something she once swore to protect. Megaera is the eyes in the dark, watching, always watching, ensuring that guilt is never forgotten, never forgiven, never erased. She lives in the clenched fists of the wronged, in the sleepless nights of the liar, in the quiet terror of those who know that justice is not a gentle thing. Megaera does not move quickly. She does not descend in a flash of rage. She festers. She rots. And when she finally strikes, it is with a vengeance so absolute, so all-consuming, that nothing is left unscathed. Tisiphone. The Avenger. There is no pity in her eyes. No hesitation in her grip. No doubt in her purpose. Tisiphone does not haunt. She does not chase. She does not need to. Because when she comes, it is already too late. Her name is a death sentence, spoken only in the trembling voices of the damned. She is murder's shadow, stalking the guilty through every breath they take. She does not punish the petty thief, does not chase the liar who tells small, selfish falsehoods. No, a Tisiphone is reserved for the worst of them, the ones who stain the world with their hands, the ones who take life as if it were theirs to claim. She does not listen to apologies. She does not care for remorse. The blood has already been spilled, the life already taken. And now, she has come to even the scales. She waits at the gallows, in the final silence before the drop. She lingers in the breath between sentence and execution. She is the end, the jagged teeth of consequence closing around the throat of the wicked. To speak her name is to invite the inevitable. Alecto. Megaera. Tisiphone. They are not merely names. They are warnings. They are etched into the bones of the world, carved into the foundations of justice itself. To know them is to know fear, not the fleeting kind, not the kind that can be outrun or drowned in wine or smothered in false hope. This fear is eternal. This fear does not die. The guilty know it. And the Furies know them. The air is heavy. Thick. Suffocating. It presses down like a hand on the throat, squeezing, squeezing, until breath comes in short, ragged gasps. The silence isn't empty. It hums. It vibrates with something unseen, something waiting. It slithers into the bones, coils around the ribs. Then a whisper. Not soft, not gentle. A hiss of rage, raw and unbroken. A voice that has never known peace, that has never once yielded, that has never for a single second stopped burning. Alecto is here. The name itself crackles with fury, a sound like fire eating through dry wood, like a blade scraping against stone. Alecto, the unceasing. The fury that does not sleep, that does not wane, that does not forgive. She does not know patience. She does not wait for justice to be served, she is justice. The kind that stalks, that chokes, that devours. Her form shifts in the half-light, cloaked in the scent of scorched earth and coppery blood. Her hair is a tangle of serpents, writhing, snapping, spitting venom into the air. Their hissing folds into her own breath, a sound that burrows into the skin, under the nails, behind the teeth. Eyes blacker than the void, depthless pits of nothing and everything at once. There is no kindness there. No pity. No hesitation. Only fury. Alecto does not forget. She has no mercy for the guilty, no softness for those who plead. She does not care for regret. What use is sorrow when the crime has already been committed? What use are apologies when the blood has already dried? She sees through them, through every trembling excuse, through every desperate prayer, through every lie whispered into the darkness. She waits in the empty spaces where rage festers. In the clenched jaws of the betrayed. In the quiet, seething hatred behind a widow's eyes. In the fingers curled so tightly into fists that nails break the skin, drawing thin rivers of red. She does not provoke anger. She does not create it. She is simply there when it comes. Alecto is the breath before the breaking point. The pressure that builds and builds, unstoppable, inescapable, until something snaps. A word too sharp, a moment too cruel, a wound too deep, and then, it is done. The dam bursts, the storm erupts, and she is there, riding the wave of wrath like a war cry echoing across the heavens. She lives in battlefields, in the shrieks of dying men, in the bloodied hands of those who have lost too much to ever be whole again. She feeds on injustice, on the agony of those who were wronged, on the shattered echoes of lives ripped apart by cruelty. She does not hunt the innocent. She does not strike without reason. But when the moment comes, when the crime demands retribution, when the wound demands vengeance, she strikes. And there is no escaping her. The guilty can run, but the weight of their sins runs faster. They can beg, but their voices are lost beneath the howling of the wind. They can try to hide, to bury their wrongs beneath years of silence, beneath wealth, beneath power, it will not matter. Because Alecto remembers. And Alecto never stops. The air is thick with something rotting. Not flesh. Not wood. Something deeper. A sickness that seeps through the cracks of the world, silent but merciless. It festers beneath every smile, behind every sweet word laced with venom. It lingers in the corner of the eye, just out of sight, waiting. Watching. Then comes the first whisper. The first cut. Why does she have what you don't? It slithers into the mind like a blade slipped between ribs, slow, precise, deliberate. It does not shout. It does not demand. It only plants itself, small, unseen, but already growing. A flicker of doubt, a flash of resentment. And once it takes hold, it is unstoppable. Megaera is here. She moves like a shadow cast by no light. She is the breath against the back of the neck, the whispering voice when no one speaks. The fury of jealousy. The keeper of grudges. She does not burn like Alecto, nor strike like Tisiphone. Her power is something slower, something poisonous. She does not destroy in an instant, she corrodes, she unmakes. She was there when Cain looked at Abel. When the first betrayal shattered trust into dust. When the golden idols rose and the gods of old were forgotten, drowned beneath the envy of men who could not bear to be second. She has always been there. Because jealousy is eternal. Her face is sharp, her lips thin, stretched in something that could be mistaken for a smile, if not for the hunger in her eyes. A hunger that does not fade, that does not know satisfaction. She does not consume like fire, she starves the soul from the inside. Her voice is never loud. It does not need to be. Look at them. A whisper that slithers beneath the skin. That seeps into the lungs with every breath. It coils around the heart, tightens, until the only thing left is want. Until nothing else matters. Until rage has no choice but to rise, to strike, to take, to destroy. Megaera does not move fast. She does not chase, does not hunt. She waits. Waits for the cracks to appear, for the wound to open, for the perfect moment when the grudge festers beyond saving. And when that moment comes, the mask shatters. The resentment erupts. And the world burns. She is there when a lover's faith turns to suspicion. When a friend's smile feels like mockery. When one sees another rise and feels only rage. She does not wield a blade, but her hands are always bloody. She does not scream, but her name is spoken in every act of envy, in every betrayal that should never have been. And once she is in the mind, in the bones, in the heart, she never leaves. The silence after a murder is unnatural. It is thick, heavy, pressing against the walls, wrapping around the lifeless body like a shroud. The air holds its breath. The world tilts, teetering on the edge of something irreparable. There is no sound except for the drip, drip, drip of blood, so steady, so patient, as if time itself acknowledges what has just been done. Then comes the weight. Not guilt. Something worse. A shift in the atmosphere. A disturbance. The kind of wrongness that raises the hairs on the back of the neck, that makes the lungs forget how to breathe. She is here. Tisiphone. The fury of murder. The bringer of retribution. She does not arrive in a flash of light, nor with the thunderous footsteps of an angry god. No. She is something colder, something crueler. Something inescapable. She watches the killer from the corner of the room, from the ceiling's shadows, from the reflection in the pooling blood. Her eyes burn, not with wrath, not with hatred, but with certainty. There is no plea. No justification. No excuses. Murder has been committed. Vengeance must follow. She moves without sound, but her presence is deafening. The air trembles as she lifts her gaze, as her lips part, not for mercy, never for mercy, but to sentence. To deliver. To drag the guilty down into the torment they have earned. Her hands are stained, not with her own crimes, but with the echoes of 1,000,000 murders, every blade that has struck, every betrayal that has ended in blood, every life snuffed out before its time. She does not kill. She punishes. Her whip slithers against the ground like a serpent hungry for flesh. The snakes in her hair hiss, not with warning, but with promise. Her wings, dark as the night before an execution, spread wide, blocking all escape. She has chased men across lands and seas, hounded them through endless nights, torn sleep from their eyes and peace from their souls. She does not strike swiftly like Alecto, nor poison like Megaera. She draws it out, lets the horror sink in, lets them understand that there is no running from what they have done. Her breath is ice against the killer's skin. Her voice is the wind that howls through a graveyard at midnight. You thought it ended here. It never does. Not when Orestes ran, haunted by the shadow of his mother's blood. Not when Cain wandered, forever marked, forever hunted. Not when those who kill in rage, in greed, in cold, calculated hatred think they can simply walk away. Tisiphone does not allow it. Murder calls to her. And she always answers. The blood was still fresh on the temple steps. The air reeked of it, thick and metallic, the scent clinging to the stones, to the walls, to the very bones of the earth beneath. The city held its breath. Eyes peeked from behind shuttered doors, trembling hands covered the mouths of children who dared to ask what had happened. No one spoke of justice. No one spoke of mercy. Because no one knew which force would answer. The Uranus had been summoned. Their arrival was not marked by thunder, nor by a chariot tearing through the sky. No, their coming was quieter. A shift. A wrongness. A creeping certain, a hesitation. A question. Could fury become mercy? Could retribution become absolution? No one breathed as the blackened wings of the Uranus trembled, as their burning eyes dimmed, as their shrieks of rage softened into something even more terrifying, silence. The city watched as their shapes twisted, as the very fabric of their being struggled against an unknown force. This was not a mere transformation. This was war, a battle between what they had been and what they were being asked to become. The Furies, the relentless tormentors of the wicked, the hounds of justice who never relented, were being asked to forgive. The air cracked with the strain of it. The weight of 1,000 curses, 1,000 shattered souls, pressed upon them. And yet, the Uranus stood. Their fingers, once curled into claws, uncurled. Their mouths, once screaming damnation, closed. They were something else now. Something gentler. Something unbearable. The Eumenides. The merciful ones. But mercy does not erase what has been done. It does not cleanse the blood from the stones, nor silence the wails of those lost to violence. The Uranus did not die. They did not fade. They simply waited. Because vengeance does not disappear. It only sleeps. The air is thick. It presses against the skin, seeps into the lungs, heavy with the scent of decay and something colder, something ancient. There is no wind here. No sky. No sun to chase away the creeping shadows that slither along the blackened ground. The silence is not empty, it hums, it breathes, it watches. The gates yawn wide, monstrous things of black iron twisted into the shapes of writhing bodies, their faces frozen in expressions of agony. A warning. A promise. There is no turning back. The weight of every step forward is undeniable, as though the very ground mourns those who walk upon it. And beyond the gates, nothing, at first. Or perhaps, everything. Darkness, endless and absolute, swallowing the senses whole. But then, a flicker of motion, a shifting of shadows that are not merely shadows. Figures loom where there should be none. Some whisper, their voices dry and rasping, too faint to understand but too present to ignore. Others do not speak at all. This is the underworld. The land of the forgotten, the damned, the judged. A place where time does not stretch forward but coils, looping back upon itself like a snake devouring its own tail. The rivers carve their way through the void, each one more treacherous than the last. The Styx, thick and black as oil, carries the weight of oaths sworn and broken. The Acron groans under the sorrow of those who have lost all hope. The Phlegethon burns, its flames licking at the souls of the wicked, never consuming, only tormenting. And there, far beyond where the weak-hearted dare tread, a court unlike any in the mortal world. No gold, no marble, no gleaming columns. This is not a place of beauty. It is a place of reckoning. The walls are made of shadows that shift and pulse like a living thing, the very fabric of the underworld wrapped around its core. At its center, the throne. Not magnificent. Not grand. Inevitable. The weight of the underworld itself settles upon the one who sits there, unmoving, unshaken. Hades, the unseen, the silent, the king of what cannot be escaped. His gaze is neither cruel nor kind. It simply is. And beside him, they wait. They do not sit. They do not rest. They have no need to. The Erinyes stand like statues carved from wrath itself, their black wings folded, their eyes gleaming in the eternal dusk. They do not blink. They do not speak. They do not have to. Because every soul brought before the court already knows. Already feels the weight of their crimes pressing against their chests, already hears the echoes of the screams they caused, already tastes the blood that once stained their hands. It is here that the guilty find no mercy. Not because it is denied them, but because they never sought it. They claw at the floor, they weep, they beg, but justice does not bargain. The Erinyes step forward, and the air shifts. The torches lining the walls flicker, though no wind moves them. The ground trembles beneath the weight of unspoken judgment. And when the sentence is passed, they do not argue. Because in this place, arguments are useless. This is not a court of men. This is not a trial of words. It is a reckoning written into the bones of the earth itself, older than law, older than gods. And those who stand accused? They have already lost. The Erinyes turn, their wings rustling like the hiss of a blade leaving its sheath. The guilty wail as they are dragged from the chamber, their screams fading into the abyss, swallowed whole by the endless, waiting dark. And still, the throne remains. Still, the torches burn. Still, the Erinyes stand, their unblinking eyes fixed on the next soul to be judged. The clay is cracked, the edges worn by time, but the terror remains. The figures etched into the surface are frozen in a moment of agony, their mouths stretched wide in eternal screams. The Fury stands above them, her eyes hollow pits of vengeance, her wings spread as if to blot out the heavens themselves. Her hair is not hair at all, it writhes, slithers, a nest of serpents twisting and knotting around her face, their fangs bared. There is no mercy in the curve of her mouth. No softness in the set of her jaw. Only justice, cold and unrelenting. Somewhere, a potter's hands trembled as he carved her form into the clay. Somewhere, a sculptor hesitated before chiseling the snarl into her lips. Even in art, she is too much. Too monstrous. Too divine. The ancients did not paint her beauty. They did not seek to make her pleasing to the eye. The Furies were never meant to be admired. They were meant to be feared. In the temples, their statues loom in the half-light, their faces half hidden in shadow. The artists knew better than to make them delicate. Their limbs are thick with muscle, their robes tattered and clinging to their bodies as if they have just risen from the depths of the earth. Their fingers end in claws, sharp and curved, waiting to tear into flesh. Some hold whips, the leather cracked and curling, the remnants of past torment still lingering in the air. Others clutch torches, the flames licking at the darkness, ready to ignite the sins of the guilty. On ancient vases, their bodies coil like serpents, twisting around the condemned. A man, hands raised in useless supplication, his face contorted in horror. His crime is unknown. It does not matter. The Erinyes have come, and he will not escape. His mouth is open, but there will be no plea that can save him. The Furies do not listen to words. They listen to the blood that stains the soul. The frescoes tell the same tale, their pigments faded but the terror still fresh. The Furies descend, their wings blacker than night, their robes billowing like storm clouds. Their eyes burn, not with rage, but with something worse, something ancient, something that does not waver, something that does not forgive. Even in marble, even in pigment, even in the fragile lines scratched into clay, they are alive. Watching. Waiting. Justice never sleeps. The whisper comes first. A name spoken in the dark, trembling on the lips of the guilty. Then the silence, thick, suffocating, coiling around the throat like unseen fingers. The weight of unseen eyes pressing down, watching, always watching. And then, the cold. A presence at the edge of sight, shifting in the shadows, something neither alive nor dead. Something that does not forget. It begins in Greece, with the Erinyes, black-winged and pitiless, wreathed in serpents, their feet pounding against the earth as they hunt the wicked. But the Furies are not alone. They never were. Other cultures, other names, other faces, different, yet the same. The same hunger, the same relentless pursuit, the same terrible justice that cannot be outrun. In Rome, they are the Dirae, the dreadful ones. Their wings slice the air, their cries are curses that poison the sky itself. To speak of them is to invite them closer. To offend them is to feel the air turn heavy, suffused with the sickle-sweet scent of impending death. But there are others still, darker ones, the Norns, who weave the strands of fate with fingers that do not tremble. And beyond them, the Hulder, the spirits of vengeance who do not forgive, who come for those who break their word, who take what does not belong to them. In Egypt, the breath of judgment is hot as the desert sun. The eye of Ra, Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess, her rage an inferno that burns the wicked from the world. When she walks, blood follows. When she hungers, whole cities fall to ruin. The gods had to trick her, had to drug her with rivers of wine, just to stop the slaughter. But even then, even when her wrath was dulled, the memory of it never faded. It still lingers in the air, in the sand, in the stories whispered under the breath of those who fear the price of their sins. In Japan, where the lantern light flickers and the roads twist through forests too quiet to be trusted, the Onri waits. She is not bound by time. She does not care for reason. She is vengeance itself, and she does not rest. They tell stories of her in hushed voices, women betrayed, murdered, left to rot, returning with eyes black as the void, their lips curled not in sorrow, but in promise. The promise that justice, when it comes, will not be swift. It will linger. Across the ocean, in the lands where the earth breathes with the spirits of the old ones, there are whispers of the La Llorona. The woman who walks the rivers, her cries stretching through the night, calling for her lost children. But those who hear her voice do not pity her. They run. They run because her sorrow has rotted into something worse. Something that drags the living into the waters to drown with her. They wear different names. They rise from different lands. But the hunger is the same. The pursuit, endless. The sentence, inescapable. And the guilty? They always run. But it does not matter. Justice has no need to hurry. Justice never tires. Justice will always find them. The air is thick with the weight of something unseen. The battlefield stinks of blood and dust, the cries of dying men swallowed by the storm overhead. Achilles stands, his chest heaving, his hands slick with the ruin of Hector's life. The gods are watching. The mortals are watching. But something else is watching too, something older than Olympus, older than the first war waged in the world. It moves in the shadows between the living and the dead, whispering in a voice colder than iron. Rage burns in Achilles, a fire too wild to be tamed. He drags Hector's body, the flesh torn and broken, the soul screaming from the underworld. The gods flinch, but the Furies do not. They have seen this before. They will see it again. And though they do not yet rise, they linger, waiting, measuring, knowing that blood demands blood, and the cost of unchecked wrath will be paid. Paris' arrow will come. The fall of Troy will come. The wheel will turn, and the curse will spread like a sickness through generations, carried on the backs of kings who thought themselves above consequence. But the Furies are patient. They know how to wait. The Odyssey is quieter but no less haunted. The sins are different, yet they reek of the same inevitability. Odysseus sails home, his body battered, his heart heavier than the sea itself. He has fought monsters, outwitted gods, watched his men perish one by one. But he does not yet know the worst of it. He does not yet know that his house is rotting. The suitors drink his wine, sleep in his bed, mock his name. They think themselves safe. They think he is dead. But the Furies are there, in the whispers of the storm that howls through Ithaca's cliffs, in the shiver of Penelope's hands as she weaves and unweaves her endless grief. Justice is coming. It always does. And when it does, it will not be clean. The blood will spray, the bodies will fall, and the ghosts of the unburied will wail in the dark. And when Odysseus stands among the dead, the taste of vengeance thick on his tongue, he will know that he has not escaped them. He never could. The Furies do not forget. The Furies do not forgive. They only wait, watch, and strike when the time is right. The blood had not yet cooled when they were born. The earth itself recoiled, trembling beneath the weight of the unspeakable crime. The sky had split open, a wound in the fabric of the cosmos, and from it spilled something more terrible than war, more enduring than hatred. Cronos stood, his breath ragged, his hands slick with the ruin of his father. The sickle dripped, crimson against the endless dark, and the severed flesh of Uranus fell into the churning sea. But the blood did not vanish. It soaked the earth, hissing as it sank into the soil, and the soil screamed. From that cursed ground, the Furies clawed their way into existence. Not born, not created, but summoned by crime, by betrayal, by the weight of sins too great to go unanswered. Their first breath was the scent of vengeance. Their first cry was a curse that echoed through the bones of the world. They did not wail like newborns. They did not stumble, weak and blind, like mortal children. They rose with purpose, with hunger, with the knowledge that they had work to do. Their eyes were black pits of judgment, their bodies wrapped in the decay of ages yet to come. Serpents coiled in their hair, their tongues flickering in and out, tasting the air for the scent of wrongdoing. Their wings, dark, leathery things, unfurled, and the shadows bent to them, recognizing what had come into being. Cronos did not look at them. He did not dare. He had killed his father, stolen his throne, torn time itself apart to seize power from the old god. But he had not silenced the voice of justice. The Furies were watching. The Furies were waiting. The Titans rose, their rule carved from the bones of the past. But there was something beneath it all, something that pulsed, unseen, like a second heartbeat beneath the skin of the world. Cronos ruled in terror, in paranoia, because he could feel them. They did not act yet, no, not yet. They were patient. They whispered through the cracks of his golden halls, slithered beneath the grand feasts, coiled around his thoughts. They knew what was coming. He would fall. They always fall. And when Zeus came, when the heavens and the earth split apart once more, the Furies did not cheer, did not side with the new king. They did not serve gods. They served the law that even gods must fear. The war ended. The Titans fell. Olympus gleamed, new and bright, a throne built atop the ruins of the past. But the blood of fathers and sons still stained the hands of those who had taken power. And the Furies never forget. They wait. They listen. They do not age. They do not forgive. Their existence is not a choice. It is inevitable. When one spills the blood of kin, when oaths are broken and trust is shattered, they rise. They come as whispers at first, creeping into the dreams of the guilty, curling around their thoughts, tightening, until sleep is a torment and waking is a nightmare. They come as shadows, as footsteps in an empty hall, as laughter that holds no warmth. And when the time is right, they come as flesh, as claws, as fangs, as judgment incarnate. The gods pretend they can stand above them. They believe themselves masters of fate, unshackled from the sins of mortals. But they are wrong. The Furies do not kneel. They do not serve Olympus or the underworld or any force beyond the old, unbreakable law. When Zeus struck down Asclepius for the crime of healing too well, when Apollo avenged his son by slaying the Cyclopes, when kin raised hands against kin, they watched. They knew. And though Zeus was mighty, though the heavens roared his name, even he was not above the weight of what he had done. It was the Furies who whispered in the night, who made his every triumph taste like ashes. It was the Furies who ensured that even gods trembled when the balance of the world was broken. And so they remain. Older than Olympus. Older than time. Not queens, not warriors, not simple monsters to be fought and defeated. They are the consequence. They are the reckoning. They were born from blood, and they will remain for as long as blood is spilled. The stench of old blood never fades. It seeps into the stones, into the very bones of the earth. The palace of Atreus is thick with it, pulsing like a wound that refuses to close. Agamemnon's death still lingers in the air, the echo of the axe, the hot spray of his lifeblood staining the tiles. And now, another murder. Another corpse left cooling in the dark. The mother, butchered by the son. A son bound by fate, by duty, by the old, unrelenting law of vengeance. Orestes does not breathe. He does not move. The silence is too heavy, too unnatural. The body of Clytemnestra lies sprawled before him, her lips still parted in that final moment of shock, her son's face the last thing she saw before the blade struck. But she is not alone. Not anymore. Something is moving in the shadows. Something waking. His fingers tremble on the hilt of his sword. He has felt death before. He has seen it, smelled it, been touched by it. But this is different. This is not the silence of a soul leaving the world. This is something coming in. A whisper slithers through the air, soft as a snake's breath. Then another. Then a dozen more. The sound is dry, rustling, like the shedding of old skin. He turns, but the shadows are thick, shifting, pulsing. And then, eyes. A ring of them, gleaming black in the dim firelight. Too many to count. Unblinking, empty, and yet, seeing everything. The Furies step forward, and the world tilts. They are wrong, their shapes twisting, unraveling, coiling into themselves. They are cloaked in filth, in dust, in the remnants of every slaughtered kin whose blood they have ever avenged. Their breath reeks of decay, of time itself rotting. Their fingers, long and clawed, stretch toward him, slow, patient, inevitable. Orestes runs. Through the halls of his father's house, past the ruined throne, past the corpses that line his bloodstained path. He runs as the walls bend, as the world shifts, as his mother's voice rises from the depths, laughing, weeping, screaming. The Furies follow, but they do not run. They do not need to. They are inside him now, in his skull, in his veins, in the spaces between each ragged breath. Outside, the world is still. The stars are cold pinpricks in the black sky. But the silence is wrong. Even the wind dares not move. Delphi. He must reach Delphi. Apollo will protect him. He must. The ground beneath his feet shrieks. The Furies are closer. Not chasing, not hunting. They do not need to. He is already theirs. His mother's blood calls to them, sings to them. He can feel them in his bones, dragging, pulling, demanding. His head burns. His hands shake. The gods, where are the gods? His knees hit the steps of Apollo's temple, and still the whispers do not stop. He presses his forehead to the cold stone, gasping, pleading, but even the god sanctuary is not enough. The Furies never stop. The trial is a farce. A mockery. The weight of ages presses down upon the gathering. Athena, golden and calm, speaks of reason, of new laws, of an end to the endless cycle of vengeance. But the Furies are older than law. Older than gods. They do not bargain. They do not forgive. Orestes is trembling, his skin pale, his body wasted. He has not slept. How could he? They have been inside his skull, whispering, whispering, whispering. He is already half mad. He is already half dead. But now, in this moment, the fate of the world tilts. The gods themselves must decide, will the old ways stand, or will something new take their place? Athena's voice is firm. A new order. A new justice. The past cannot devour the future. The cycle must end. The Furies scream. It is not a sound for mortal ears. It is a sound that cracks the earth, that splits the sky, that sends gods reeling. It is rage itself, fury given shape, the howl of every wronged soul that has ever demanded payment in blood. But even they cannot fight the will of Olympus. Not destroyed, not defeated, changed. Athena renames them the Eumenides, the kindly ones. A cruel mercy, a twisting of their very nature. They will not be erased, but they will be tamed. They accept. But something in the air is different. Something has shifted. The world does not feel quite as steady as it once was. The old gods watch in silence, and the Furies, they are still here. Changed, perhaps. Masked in new names, new duties. But they do not forget. They do not truly forgive. The gods may rule Olympus, but the Furies will always be waiting. The walls of Mycenae remember. The air is thick with it, a weight that never lifts, a shadow that no sun can burn away. The house of Atreus is cursed, its very stone stained with the blood of fathers and sons, of mothers and daughters. And now a queen lies dead by her own child's hand. Clytemnestra's body is cooling on the floor. The wound gapes, red and gory, the last breath stolen from her lungs. The taste of her death still lingers in the air, thick as iron, as if the house itself drinks it in, as if the gods themselves lean closer. Orestes stares, his breath coming in shallow gasps. His hand is still clenched around the dagger's hilt, the blade slick with her life. The blood is his mother's. His mother's. The woman who carried him, the woman whose arms once held him close, the woman who killed his father, the woman who deserved to die. His mind repeats it like a chant, like a prayer. She deserved it. She deserved it. Then why does the air feel so wrong? The silence presses down, heavy as a tomb. His heart hammers. His body shakes. He swallows, but the weight in his throat won't go down. Something is watching. No. They are watching. They come like a sickness. A whisper in the marrow. A rot in the soul. The first sound is a rustling, dry and brittle, as if something long dead is stirring, shaking loose the dust of the grave. Then, breath. Hot and rancid, thick with decay, curling around him like unseen fingers. He closes his eyes, but the darkness behind his lids is worse, because now he sees them. The Furies. Their eyes, black pits that drink in the light. Their mouths, twisted in hunger, in fury, in something older than gods, older than law. Their hands, stained with the deaths of 1,000 murdered kin. Their bodies, impossible, shifting, wreathed in the smoke of burning offerings, draped in filth and grief. They do not speak. Not yet. Orestes does not breathe. His limbs have turned to stone. A scream swells in his throat, but it never comes. Then, the first voice. Soft, lilting, almost kind, if kindness could be flayed open, stripped raw, bled dry. Murderer! The second voice follows, curling through his skull, curling into every hollow space inside him. Oathbreaker. A third, low and heavy as the earth itself. Mother killer. His body convulses. He falls to his knees, hands clawing at his head, as if he can dig their voices out, as if they are not inside him already. They are everywhere. In his bones, in his breath, in the spaces between heartbeats. He stumbles back, feet slipping in his mother's blood. His stomach heaves, but he cannot move, cannot run, cannot even scream. You cannot run from us, Orestes. The words slither through him. The sound is not made for mortal ears. It is a sound of things long buried, things that should never wake. They close in. He bolts. The halls stretch before him, endless, twisting, wrong. The torches flicker and sputter. The air is thick, heavy, suffocating. The whispers slither through the dark, pressing against his skin, wrapping around his throat. We are with you. We will always be with you. He stumbles into the streets. The world outside is silent, but the silence is wrong. The Furies do not need to chase him. They are inside him now. He runs, feet pounding against the earth, past the gates of Mythology, past the empty fields, past the staring eyes of those who already know. He is cursed. His blood, his name, his very soul. He runs to Delphi, to the shrine of Apollo, to the god who swore to protect him. He collapses at the altar, body racked with tremors, fingers clawing at the cold stone. He pleads, sobs, begs, but the whispers do not stop. They crouch in the shadows. They weave through the temple. Their presence seeps into the sacred space, curling around him like smoke. Apollo appears, golden and radiant, a god of light, of reason, of order. He speaks of laws, of justice, of vengeance tempered by righteousness. He tells Orestes to go to Athens, to plead before Athena, to put himself at the mercy of a new kind of justice. The Furies laugh. It is a sound that shatters the air, that curdles the blood. It is the sound of things that cannot be tamed. Athena listens. She speaks of change, of reason, of an end to the endless cycle of blood for blood. She calls for a trial, a weighing of guilt, a new way forward. The Furies rage. They are not wrong. They are not unjust. They are vengeance incarnate, the unrelenting law that binds the world together. They do not forgive. They do not forget. The vote is cast. The old world trembles. Orestes is spared. The Furies scream. It is a sound that splits the sky, that shakes the earth, that does not end. Athena names them anew. She binds them, tames them, twists them into something that will not devour the world whole. But they do not forget. They will never forget. The house of Atreus still stands, but the weight of the past is not so easily erased. Orestes walks free, but his mother's blood still stains his hands. The gods may reshape justice, may forge new paths, but the Furies remain. They are always waiting. The sky is too quiet. The kind of silence that grips the air before a storm, before the first crack of thunder splits the world apart. The kind of silence that knows something is about to be decided, something that can never be undone. Orestes stands, body stiff, hands clenched at his sides. He can still feel his mother's blood on his skin, even though it has long since been washed away. The guilt is not so easily erased. He does not tremble, though every nerve in his body screams. He does not fall, though the weight pressing down on him is enough to crush a mortal man. They are here. The Furies. They coil at the edges of the courtroom, their forms shifting, writhing, crawling at the seams of reality. No one looks at them directly. No one dares. Their mouths twist in silent curses. Their eyes, black voids, wells of endless hunger, are locked onto Orestes, unblinking, unmerciful. Vengeance made flesh. Athena watches from her throne, poised, unmoved. Her eyes, so different from theirs, do not burn with rage, do not demand suffering. They weigh, they measure, they judge. She is not here for blood. She is here for order. And order has never been more fragile. The trial begins. Apollo speaks first. His voice is steady, but there is something sharp beneath it, something like steel sliding free of its sheath. This is not just about Orestes. This is about the future. The old laws must give way. The cycle must break. He argues for the son who avenged the father who was slain in cold betrayal. Agamemnon's death was unjust, a treacherous thing, a wife's blade in the dark, a queen's hand stained with treason. Should a mother's life outweigh a father's? The words cut through the air, slicing into the silence. The Furies move. A ripple of shadows, a rustling of unseen wings. Their voices come like a hiss of 1,000 serpents, like the wind wailing through the graves of the forgotten. A mother's blood is sacred. A mother's blood cries louder than a king's. A mother gives life. A mother cannot be struck down by her child. Their fury burns, old and unyielding. The gods themselves were born beneath their watchful eyes. They have torn kings apart, reduced heroes to nothing but shattered bones and howling ghosts. They do not forget. Orestes is theirs. He should have died the moment he raised the blade. He should have been hunted, hounded, shredded apart by the teeth of the old laws. His very existence is an insult to the order of things. Apollo's voice is a weapon, sharp and unyielding. Orestes was commanded. It was justice. It was the will of the gods. The Furies scream. The sound rips through the courtroom, shakes the marble, sends a pulse of rot and rage through the air. The earth trembles. The walls darken, as if the very foundation of the city cannot bear their wrath. They are older than Olympus. Older than Apollo. Older than Athena. They were there when the first crime was committed, when the first drop of kin blood stained the earth. No god can erase us. No god can silence us. They speak not just for Clytemnestra. They speak for every life stolen by the lawless hands of vengeance disguised as justice. They speak for the broken, for the murdered, for the betrayed. They speak for the dead. The gods argue. The Furies howl. The mortals listen, terrified to breathe too loudly, to move too suddenly. Athena raises a hand. The silence falls like a blade. She speaks, and her words are neither fire nor fury. They do not rise with wrath nor sink with grief. They hold balance, an impossible thing, fragile and cold. She calls for a vote. The first trial of its kind. Not war, not vengeance, not fire or fury or blade, but judgment. The Furies seethe. They do not trust this new world, this world of words and measured hands. Justice is not a thing to be weighed like grain, not a thing to be split in two. It is a force, a fire, a flood. It consumes. It devours. But they do not stop it. The votes are cast. The air is electric, as if the very sky is waiting to tear itself apart. The final count. Orestes lives. The Furies wail. It is not a sound for mortal ears. It is the sound of an ending, of something vast and ancient being forced into something small and unnatural. A scream that has no end, that reaches across time, that carves itself into the bones of the world. Orestes stumbles forward, his breath stolen from him, his heart hammering against his ribs. He is free. The Furies burn. Athena does not blink. She does not falter. She does not kneel before them. She names them anew. She binds them in a way no sword ever could. They will no longer be the bringers of endless blood, no longer the devourers of sons and daughters. They will be honored. They will be revered. They will not be forgotten. The Furies still. Their shadows coil tighter, their shrieks quiet into something low, something whispering, something seething, but they do not vanish. They never vanish. They do not forget. They never will. The air stinks of blood. It seeps into the stones, clings to the walls, soaks into the earth like a curse that will never be lifted. Somewhere, an owl shrieks, not a sound of wisdom, but of warning, of something that should not be disturbed. Electra does not blink. Her fingers are stiff, curled around nothing, trembling with a rage older than she is, older than her father's bones, older than the crime that shattered her world. Her lips are dry, cracked, tasting of dust and silence and a grief too vast to name. Orestes is beside her. His breath is unsteady. His body is taut, his mind walking the thin edge between duty and madness. The blade in his hand is real. The weight of it burns his palm. The command of Apollo rings in his skull. But there is another voice. Low. Writhing. Hissing between the spaces where shadows move, where light dares not linger. They are watching. The Furies. They coil at the edges of sight, their forms twisting, never still. Their eyes are endless pits, swallowing what little sanity remains in this house of ruin. Their whispers slither through the cracks in Orestes' mind, through the marrow of his bones, through the sinew of his resolve. Kill her. Kill the mother who killed the father. Spill her blood as she spilled his. Let the curse be fed. Let justice be done. Clytemnestra stands before them. She is not begging. She is not pleading. She does not throw herself at her son's feet, does not tear at her hair or claw at her face in remorse. She knows. She sees the Furies too. She smiles. Because she knows what Orestes does not. The moment the blade falls, the moment her blood soaks the ground, they will turn on him. They do not love her. They do not pity her. But the law they serve is older than love, colder than pity, heavier than guilt. The moment Orestes does what he was commanded to do, they will sink their claws into his soul and never let go. Electra does not care. She wants it done. She wants the balance restored, the debt paid. She wants to hear her mother's last breath slip between her lips like a final, gasping lie. She wants her father's grave to drink justice at last. But Orestes hesitates. The Furies lean closer. And then, the blade falls. The world splits open. A scream, ancient and unending, rips through the air. It is not Clytemnestra's. It is the Furies. They rise. They rise like a tide of black fire, like vultures that have been circling for too long, too patient, too eager for the feast to begin. They belong to him now. They own him. His limbs lock, his chest heaves, his head snaps to the side as if unseen hands are already wrenching him away from the world of the living. His mother's blood is still warm on his skin, and the Furies are already drinking his soul dry. Electra watches. She feels nothing. Not yet. But the screaming does not stop. It will never stop. And the Furies will never let him rest. The torches flicker, casting twitching, shifting shadows along the walls. Heracles stares at his hands. They are stained. They should not be stained. He does not remember why. The silence presses against his skull. The kind of silence that comes when something is missing, something that should be here but isn't. His wife should be speaking. His children should be laughing. Their voices should be, the silence laughs at him. Then he sees them. Not his wife. Not his children. The Furies. Their eyes are black as the bottom of the sea. Their mouths are curled into something that is not quite a smile, not quite a snarl, not quite human at all. They do not need to move. They do not need to speak. He already knows. His stomach twists. His bones ache as if they have been grinding against something that was never meant to be touched. His vision warps. The bodies are there. Torn, broken, lifeless. He tries to breathe, but the air chokes him. No. No, 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 but the truth is an iron weight that drags him down, down, down. The madness is gone now. It has left him in ruin. The Furies watch. They do not need to torment him. He is already destroyed. But they do not leave. They do not vanish into the dark, do not slip away into nothingness like a nightmare at dawn. Because this is not a punishment. It is a lesson. He was the greatest of men. The strongest. The mightiest. A demigod, touched by the hands of Olympus itself. And now he is nothing. The Furies will not strike him down. They do not have to. He will do it himself. His fingers twitch toward the sword. His breath hitches. The weight of it all crushes his spine, his ribs, his skull. He was meant to be invincible. But the Furies have never cared for strength. They care for blood. For crimes that cannot be undone. For the screams that never truly fade. And for men like him, men who wake from madness only to realize the horror they have become. The path is broken. Jagged stones shift beneath his bare feet, each step a whisper of pain, a quiet punishment for sins too great to name. The air is thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something older than decay, older than death itself. Oedipus does not stop. His body is failing. His breath is labored, wheezing from lungs that have carried curses for too long. His hands tremble as they grip the rough, gnarled branch that keeps him upright. He should have collapsed long ago. He should have rotted where he fell. But the Furies are waiting. He feels them. They coil around the edges of this forsaken place, unseen but never absent, their presence seeping into the marrow of the earth itself. The darkness beneath the trees is alive, shifting, breathing, whispering things no mortal should hear. This is their ground. Colonus. A sanctuary for the damned. A graveyard where time forgets its dead. Oedipus lifts his head, blind eye searching through the silence. His heart pounds. They are watching. Not just the gods, not just the men who curse his name, not just the whispers of fate that have stalked him from the moment of his birth. The Furies. Avengers. Enforcers. Judges. And he is standing at their gate. The weight of a life spent in blood and prophecy drags at his bones. He has wandered through filth, through hunger, through the shattered remnants of a throne he never asked for, of a truth he never wanted. His mother's screams still echo in the hollow spaces of his skull. His father's silence is a wound that never closes. He was never meant to be free. But here, in the land of the Furies, there is something else. Not salvation. Not mercy. Something darker. Something final. The ground quivers beneath him. Not an earthquake. Not a storm. Something waking up. His daughters gasp behind him. Antigone clutches at his arm, her fingers small, warm, desperate. She has carried him for so long. Held him upright when the world would have let him rot. But she cannot save him from this. No one can. The silence is too thick. It presses against the skull, a weight heavier than any crown. And then a sound. A voice, but not a voice. A breath that crawls over skin, a whisper of rusted nails dragging over stone. It does not come from the air. It rises from the ground, from the gaping mouth of the earth itself. You have come. Oedipus does not flinch. He bows his head. A lifetime of suffering. A lifetime of running. A lifetime of gods who never looked down, of oracles that spat riddles and fate that held a blade to his throat before he ever drew breath. And now, the Furies stand before him. The weight of their law settles over his skin like frost, like fire, like something that cannot be undone. Oedipus. The name curls in the air, a whisper, a judgment, a name that has carried too much death, too much ruin, too much consequence. He does not answer. He kneels. The earth swallows the sound. His daughters are crying, but their voices are far away now, lost in the roar of something coming, something breaking through the thin skin of the world, something that has waited for far too long. The ground splits. A great, gaping maw of shadow and silence and judgment. This is not a god's hand. Not some divine mercy. This is the will of the Furies. This is their sentence. Oedipus tilts his face to the sky. His lips part. He does not beg. He laughs. And then, the world swallows him whole. The wind dies. The trees hold their breath. Even the sky seems afraid to move, as if something older, crueler, inevitable has turned its gaze upon this place. Oedipus stands on the edge of the world. The ground beneath him is not just dirt and stone, it is something waiting. The Furies are here. He does not see them, but he does not have to. They have been with him from the beginning, shadows curled around his birth, coiling tighter with every step, every sin, every scream that fate carved into his bones. He breathes, and the air tastes of rust. His daughters are behind him, trembling, pleading. He cannot hear them. Not really. Not anymore. Their voices are distant, swallowed by something greater, something pulling, something deciding. This is not death. Not in the way men know it. This is something else. The Furies have come to claim what is theirs. They are not gods. They are not spirits. They are not bound by mercy or by time. They are the answer to the world's cruelties, the law carved into the marrow of existence itself. And now, they are watching. Oedipus does not beg. He has torn out his own eyes, walked through filth and exile, carried his own shame like a corpse that will not rot. He has heard the whispers, felt the knives of men's judgment, tasted the bile of his own sins. And yet, the Furies are not here for vengeance. Not for him. They should be. By all the laws that rule the world, they should be. He has spilled the blood of kings, shattered the natural order, twisted fate into something so grotesque that the gods themselves recoiled. But fate chose him. From the moment his first breath left his lips, he was never free. Not once. Not ever. Every step, every turn, every gasp of love or agony, it was never his own. And the Furies know this. They know justice. They know what is owed, what must be punished, what must be balanced. And so, they do not strike him down. They do not rip him apart, do not drag him into the abyss, do not make him pay in agony for the agony he has caused. Instead, the earth opens. It does not crack, does not split like something wounded. It yawns, silent and endless, like a throat swallowing words that were never meant to be spoken. Oedipus does not scream. He steps forward. There is no hesitation. No fear. He has been afraid his entire life, afraid of the gods, of fate, of the truths carved into his skin before he ever understood the meaning of his own name. But now, at the end, he is free. His daughters sob, but they do not move. They cannot. This is something beyond them. Beyond men. Beyond kings and queens and oracles and destinies written in blood. This is the Furies' will. The air shudders. The trees shiver. The sky weeps. And then, he is gone. The ground reeks of blood. Not fresh, not new, but ancient, a scent that has soaked the earth for generations, seeping into the bones of the land itself. Smoke rides in the sky, twisting like a living thing, a serpent born of ruin and rage. Troy is burning. Walls crumble, bodies collapse, the night itself shudders beneath the weight of so much suffering. But the gods are silent. They watch, but they do not weep. Because this war was never theirs. Not truly. It was always the Furies. They do not need to raise their hands. They do not scream, they do not command, they do not hurl lightning or summon waves to drag men into the abyss. Their weapons are older, sharper, deeper. They whisper. And their whispers crawl like venom beneath the skin. Paris, standing on the walls of his burning city, a fool who mistook desire for destiny, never heard them. But they were there, coiling around his choices, wrapping themselves around the poisoned apple of his fate. Did he truly think his love was a gift? Did he not feel the weight of the curse as he stole Helen from the hearth that was never his to claim? The Furies were watching. They were watching as Menelaus's rage became something monstrous, something too vast, too swollen with hatred to be contained within a single man's heart. They were watching when Agamemnon raised the knife over his daughter's throat, when Iphigenia's screams choked the wind, when her blood stained the ground and the gods did nothing. They were watching when Achilles' fury turned to grief, when the weight of Patroclus' lifeless body crushed something inside him, when he became something worse than mortal, worse than divine, a beast made of wrath and ruin. And when Hector fell, when his corpse was dragged, desecrated, defiled, when Troy's walls shuddered beneath the wails of a father who had lost everything, the Furies fed. Because this was never about men. Never about gods. This was about something greater. Old wounds. Old curses. Old debts. The house of Atreus, a dynasty rotting from the inside, its hands stained with crimes that had never been answered, never been balanced, never been paid for in full. The Furies do not forget. So they whispered in Agamemnon's ear as his ship set sail, whispered of glory, of vengeance, of his right to burn, to take, to slaughter. They whispered in Clytemnestra's veins as she waited, not as a widow, but as a blade, honed and hungry for justice. They whispered in Cassandra's skull, in the twisting corridors of her cursed sight, showing her the death that was waiting, the axe, the blood, the betrayal that would shatter the house she was forced to enter. And when Troy finally fell, when the screams melted into the flames, when fathers were slaughtered before their sons, when mothers were torn from their children, when the city choked on its own suffering, the Furies were there. Not laughing. Not grieving. Only watching. Because the war was never over. Not for them. The wind carries a name. A whisper. A curse. It slithers through the trees, winding through the bones of the forgotten. No one speaks of them anymore. No poets sing their wrath. No scribes carve their deeds into stone. But they are there. They always have been. A man stumbles through the darkness, his breath ragged, his heartbeat a war drum pounding against his ribs. He does not know where he is. Only that the shadows pulse and shift, that something unseen moves just beyond the edges of the firelight. He killed his brother. It was an accident. It was a moment of rage. It doesn't matter. A laugh shivers through the air, but it is not human. It is rusted metal and snapping bones, the sound of vengeance growing teeth. His vision blurs. The world tilts. His hands, why won't they stop shaking? The Furies are watching. No grand war. No king's folly. Just a man bleeding from the weight of his own sins. Somewhere, a mother weeps. She had 2 sons. Now, she has none. One buried beneath the earth, the other hunted by things that do not forgive. No one tells these stories. No one speaks of the fisherman who found a coin where it shouldn't be, gleaming on the deck like an eye ripped from a god's skull. He thought it was luck. He thought it was fortune smiling upon him. But the coin was old. Too old. And as he pressed it between his fingers, the voices began. Whispering. Laughing. By morning, his body was found in the surf, his own hands wrapped around his throat, his mouth stuffed with the same cursed coin. His wife never remarried. His son never sailed again. The sea never took another offering from that shore. The Furies do not care if you believe in them. They do not care if your name is etched in legend or if you are nothing but dust and regret. They have never cared. A woman walks through the ruins of a temple long abandoned. The pillars are cracked, the statues eyeless, the silence thick as drowning hands. She is looking for something. No. Someone. The man who swore to love her. The man who left her for another. The man who promised her eternity, then tore it away as if she were nothing but a story half written, a flame easily smothered. She stands in the heart of the ruins, the wind howling through the hollow spaces where prayers once lived. And she calls them. She does not cry. She does not beg. She simply calls. They answer. Not in words. Not in form. But in the weight that presses against her chest, in the whisper threading through her veins like poison, in the knowledge that when she wakes tomorrow, she will no longer be alone. The man will hear them first in his dreams. A flicker of sound. A murmur of something long dead but never silent. Then, in his waking hours, shadows that do not belong, movements in the corners of his vision. Then, the taste of blood, his own, when none has been spilled. And then, when the sun sets and he is alone with the life he built upon her broken heart, then, he will understand. The Furies do not forget. Their justice is not bound to great halls or royal lines. It does not belong solely to queens betrayed or sons forced to slaughter their own mothers. It does not care if you are mortal or divine. A child cries in the night, clutching the amulet her mother gave her in secret, the one her father forbade her from ever touching. She does not know why the air feels different, why the house creaks like a living thing, why the dreams claw at the edges of her sleep. Her father wronged someone. And now, they have come for him. Not for gold. Not for blood. For balance. For debt. For vengeance that cannot be bargained away, cannot be buried, cannot be ignored. She presses the amulet to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks, whispering a name she does not remember ever being taught. But they do. They always have. The air is thick, heavy, too heavy. The kind of weight that isn't carried on the shoulders but inside the chest, pressing, tightening, strangling. He swallows, but the taste of iron lingers, clinging to his tongue like something rotten. No one else hears them. No one else sees the shadows flicker when there is no flame, the walls stretch and shrink as if they are breathing. No one else feels the whisper of cold fingers along the spine, the itch in the marrow, the sharp pull of something just behind the eyes. But he does. Because they are for him. The Furies do not come with thunder or fire. They come in silence. In the dead, empty spaces of the night. In the moments when the world stills and the noise fades, leaving nothing but a heartbeat too loud in the ears, too fast in the chest. They coil in the quiet, in the absence of distraction, in the hollowness left behind by deeds that can never be undone. He should not have done it. He knows this. He knew it before his hands were wet, before the echoes of his own voice, twisted, snarling, nothing like him but undeniably his, had settled into the walls like trapped ghosts. But knowing does nothing now. Because the moment has already passed. The choice was already made. And they never leave once they have smelled guilt. He wakes in the night, gasping, choking, clawing at the air like a drowning man with no water to fight against. The room is empty, but he is not alone. The silence thrums. His own breath stutters, uneven, shuddering. He cannot see them, but he knows they are watching. Waiting. It is not the kind of fear that flares and fades. It does not live in the skin, fleeting and shallow. It is deeper. Darker. A sickness that burrows into the soul, gnaws through the ribs, nests between the lungs. He tries to escape them. Drinks until thought is impossible. Talks, laughs, drowns himself in noise and people and anything that will keep the silence at bay. But the moment he is alone, they are there. They do not scream. They do not strike. They do not have to. They do not need to punish. They only need to remind. His own mind does the rest. The weight of it grows. Every step heavier than the last. Every breath thicker, clogging his throat like mud. He cannot sleep. He cannot eat. He cannot close his eyes without seeing it, the thing he did, the thing he swore he would never become, the thing that now defines him. He does not need shackles. His guilt is the chain, his own mind the executioner. He stops talking. Stops trying. Stops running. The world around him moves on, untouched, unknowing. The sun still rises, children still laugh, people still go about their lives as if nothing has changed. Because nothing has, except for him. He is rotting from the inside out, caged by ghosts that no one else can see. One night, he sits in the darkness, hands limp, head bowed. He does not cry. He does not shake. There is nothing left to feel but the weight of it all. And for the first time, the Furies speak. Not in words. Not in sound. But in the stillness, in the finality, in the quiet certainty that he will never outrun what he has done. He is his own punishment. He always was. The night is thick with silence, but it is not empty. A man stands in the center of the city, his hands trembling at his sides, his breath uneven. Sweat clings to his skin despite the cold. Behind him, the temple looms, its columns white as bone in the moonlight. He swore he would find justice here. Swore he would stand before men, plead his case, and leave with a verdict that would set the world right. But something is wrong. The streets are too still. The stars above do not blink. The shadows stretch and coil, creeping toward him like living things. He knows before he sees them. They have come. The Furies do not answer to men. They do not concern themselves with laws written in ink, with judgments passed down by mortal hands. They are older than kings, older than courts, older than the fragile excuses men whisper to themselves when they believe they have outrun their sins. They are justice that cannot be swayed. He turns, and they are there. Not women, not monsters, but something in between, something worse. Their eyes are bottomless pits, their faces carved from shadow. They do not blink. They do not breathe. They only watch. He stumbles back, heart hammering. I was found innocent, he gasps, his voice breaking on the words. They heard my case. The court, the law, the Furies do not move. The law. It is a fragile thing, made by men, twisted by power, rewritten with each new ruler. One court will call a man innocent. Another will call him guilty. One set of hands will sign a pardon while another will sharpen the blade. Mortal justice is a shifting thing, bending under the weight of silver, of fear, of politics. A crime in one city is a virtue in another. Men break the same laws they claim to uphold. But the Furies are older than men. Their justice is not written. It is felt. It is known. It is the law of the universe itself. A crime is a wound in the fabric of the world, and they are the infection that sets in, rotting, burning, consuming until balance is restored. The man staggers, hands reaching for something, anything, to hold on to. It wasn't murder, he breathes. I had no choice. No choice. The words echo in the stillness, empty, weightless, meaningless. Choice is the illusion of men who fear consequences. The blade does not care why it was lifted. The corpse does not care why it was made still. He sees it now, sees what mortal justice cannot grasp. The world itself remembers. The very air around him hums with the weight of the act, the unchangeable truth of it. There is no pardon. No appeal. No escaping what is owed. His mouth opens, but there are no words left. The Furies do not need to speak. He understands now. And understanding is the final blow. His knees buckle. The cold stone of the city streets rises up to meet him, and as his body crumples, the Furies step forward, silent, patient, absolute. The oath had been spoken. The air had trembled with the weight of it. Words, once released, became chains, binding, unbreakable, eternal. But men forget. A king stands in his hall, golden light flickering across his face. His hands are steady. His voice is firm. He speaks with the confidence of one who believes himself beyond consequence. The promise he made is dust now, scattered, meaningless. He swore before gods and men, and now, with a wave of his hand, he declares it undone. The room listens. The walls remember. The earth itself shudders at the lie. He does not see the shadows shift in the corners. Not yet. The Furies do not strike like men. They do not rush, they do not rage. They wait. They let the betrayal settle into the bones of the world, let the weight of it press down, crushing, suffocating. They let the broken oath fester like rot, and when the time is right, they come. The torch is dim. The air thickens. The king pauses, a flicker of unease flashing across his face. He grips the arms of his throne, fingers pressing into the wood. His guards are near. His power is absolute. But there is something here. Something watching. He turns, too late. They step from the dark, moving without sound, their forms shifting between shadow and flesh, between nightmare and vengeance. Their eyes do not burn, they drown. Black and bottomless, swallowing light, swallowing hope, swallowing the last fragile belief that what is broken can be made whole. He tries to speak. The words tangle in his throat. His body betrays him, heavy, frozen, breathless beneath their gaze. A promise was made. A promise was broken. Men think their oaths die with the passing of time. They do not. Words bind the soul, tie it to the fabric of the world. To break them is to wound the very essence of existence, and wounds do not heal without cost. The Furies are that cost. They do not ask why. They do not care for regret, for apologies, for excuses woven from fear. They are justice older than mercy. The king trembles now. He remembers, too late, that there are things in this world that cannot be undone. He reaches for his sword, for his men, for his gods. None will save him. The Furies do not punish. They restore. And as the first clawed hand reaches for his throat, he finally understands the price of breaking what was never his to break. The oil lamp flickers, shadows stretching long and thin across the stone walls. A scroll lies open on the table, its words curling in ink, whispering questions that have no answers. The room is silent, but not empty. A man sits there, his brow furrowed, his fingers hovering just above the words. Plato. His mind is a storm, raging against the old gods, against the unseen forces that men have feared for centuries. He has spent his life shaping order out of chaos, molding thought like clay, pressing reason against the wild, the uncontrollable. But the Furies, they refuse to be tamed. He closes his eyes, and they are there. Not as the hissing, vengeful wraiths of old, not as blood-stained shadows haunting the guilty, but as something more. A force. A necessity. Justice that does not shatter, but shapes. They are no longer just punishment, they are the balance that keeps the world from crumbling under the weight of men's desires. His breath is slow, steady. He cannot deny them. He cannot erase them. But he can change them. Far away, in another time, Aristotle walks alone. The moonlight drips between the trees, silver bleeding into the earth. The night hums around him, alive with the sounds of things unseen. His mind is sharp, dissecting the world with logic, with clarity. But even now, alone beneath the weight of the sky, he feels them. The Furies have walked beside men since the first betrayal, since the first lie, since the first drop of blood was spilled by a brother's hand. Are they demons? Are they gods? Or are they something woven into the very fabric of existence, something as natural as breath, as inevitable as time? He does not believe in chaos. There must be purpose. And so the Furies must be more than wrath. He stops, the wind curling around him, cold fingers against his skin. What if they are the voice inside? Not ghosts. Not monsters. But conscience. A mother who drowns her child hears them in her screams. A man who betrays his friend hears them in the silence that follows. A king who breaks his word hears them in his own heartbeat, in the hollow ache of his own chest. The Furies have changed. Or perhaps men have simply learned to listen. The torches burn low, their flames licking the damp cave walls, casting restless shadows that shift and twist like living things. The air is thick, heavy with incense, with the sweat of those who stand in the dark, waiting. Breathless. Silent. Afraid. A hooded figure steps forward, their robe stained with time, their voice a whisper that cuts through the silence like a blade. No names are spoken. No questions are asked. Those who have come here already know. The Furies are watching. Somewhere in the blackness beyond the torches, their presence coils around the gathering like smoke. Not seen, but felt. A pressure against the chest, a shiver beneath the skin. Judging. Waiting. Weighing. A knife gleams in the dim light. A single drop of blood falls to the earth. The oath is spoken, not in words but in a breath held too long, in a heart pounding against the ribs. What is sworn here cannot be broken. Not by time. Not by fear. Not even by death. There are no gods here. Only the law beneath the law, the justice that runs colder and sharper than any decree written by mortal hands. The Furies do not forget. They have no temples, no golden statues standing high beneath the open sky. They are buried in places where the sun cannot reach, in whispered names and clenched fists, in the flicker of a torch carried through the darkness by those who have seen too much, who know what happens to those who betray the old ways. A woman kneels at the edge of the circle, her hands trembling as she presses them to the earth. Her crime is unknown. It does not matter. The only thing that matters is the weight of unseen eyes, the cold breath of something ancient stirring against the nape of her neck. She does not plead. She does not cry out. There is no mercy here. Only justice. The torches flicker. The shadows close in. The ritual begins. The night is heavy with the weight of something unspoken. The torches outside the temple burn low, their glow swallowed by the endless dark. Inside, a woman stands, her hands clenched at her sides, her breath ragged, her eyes fixed on the blood-stained altar before her. She is not afraid. The world has given her many names: wife, mother, daughter, widow. None of them matter now. The only name that holds meaning is the one whispered in the dark, the one that slithers through the cracks of men's voices when they speak of vengeance. Fury. They call upon the gods for justice, but gods are slow. Gods are silent. Gods do not weep when a woman is torn from herself, when her name is buried beneath the crimes of others. But the Furies do. They are there, always, just beyond the veil of sight. In the spaces between screams, in the breath before the knife is driven home, in the silence that lingers long after the blood has dried. They wait. They listen. They remember. The woman lifts the dagger, its edge glinting with a promise. She will not be forgotten. The world may have broken her, but it has also made her into something new, something sharper, something that no man can unmake. The old laws do not protect her, so she calls upon the ones that do. The Furies stir. They have never been gods of mercy. They do not grant forgiveness. They do not accept apologies. They are wrath, unrelenting. They are the breath of every woman who has been silenced, the footsteps that echo behind every man who believes his sins have been buried with the bodies. A voice cuts through the silence, raw and seething, "He will pay." The words are not a plea. They are a sentence. And the Furies are already moving. The whisper comes first. Soft, almost tender. A breath against the skin, a flicker in the dark. Then the clawing. It starts from the inside, scraping against bone, curling through muscle, winding tight around the lungs. A pressure, a weight. It knows your name. The room is empty, but you are not alone. They are there, always. Waiting in the hollow spaces between thoughts, coiling in the back of your throat, seething beneath the surface of your skin. You tell yourself it is over. The past is past. But the Furies do not care for time. They are not shadows to be outrun. They are not whispers that fade with the dawn. They are here. They never left. The first one lingers at the edge of your vision, her face half-formed, shifting between rage and sorrow. She does not speak, but her silence is worse. She sees everything. The second stands behind you, so close you swear you can feel her breath against your neck. The third? She is inside you. You try to breathe, but they tighten their grip. You tell yourself you are safe, but they know better. They always know better. They do not forget. They were there when it happened. They heard the screams. They felt the shaking hands. They saw what you did to survive. And they remember what you cannot. You close your eyes. The walls shrink inward. The silence is suffocating. Then, the whisper again. You cannot bury us. And they are right. The air is thick. Not with smoke, not with fog, but with something heavier. Something unseen. It presses against the chest, coils around the ribs like a serpent squeezing its prey. A man stands in the temple, his breath shallow, his hands trembling. The marble floor is cold beneath his knees, the weight of the gods pressing down upon him like the sky before a storm. He has come to beg, to plead, to offer whatever they demand. But the air does not stir. The gods do not answer. Because they are not the ones who listen. The Furies do. They are already here. They do not wait for offerings. They do not require prayers. They do not need to be summoned. They come when sin calls to them. And sin always calls. It lingers in the blood, clings to the skin, drips from the tongue like venom. It does not wash away. It does not fade. It festers, seeps into the cracks of the soul, growing roots so deep that no fire can burn them out. The man shudders as he feels them now, those unseen claws reaching into his chest, prying apart the lie he has told himself, that he can be free of this. The Furies do not punish mortals for breaking human laws. They do not strike for theft or deceit, for drunken brawls or foolish pride. Those sins belong to men. The Furies answer to something greater. They come for the crimes against the sacred. The mother's wail as her son is slaughtered in the night. The shattering of a vow sworn before the gods. The betrayal of blood, the violation of oaths, the act so foul that the earth itself recoils. These are the sins that call them forth. These are the wounds that cannot be healed. The man kneels lower, forehead touching the stone, whispering words that are lost before they leave his lips. The silence is a blade against his throat. He knows they are near. He can feel them. The temple is empty, yet the air is thick with presence. Then, a breath. It is cold against his ear, colder than the stone, colder than the fear curdling in his gut. It does not belong to the wind. Did you think they would not hear? His body seizes. His pulse is a war drum in his skull. He does not move, does not breathe, but the voice is inside him now, clawing through his ribs, curling around his heart. Did you think sin could be swallowed by silence? The Furies do not need proof. They do not need witnesses. Sin is written in the soul, and they are the ones who read it. A shadow moves at the edge of his vision. A rustle of fabric, or perhaps feathers. The scent of earth, of blood, of something ancient and rotting beneath the surface of the world. Then, nails scraping against stone, slow, deliberate, the sound of something coming closer. His throat is too dry to scream. Sin is not forgiven. Sin is not forgotten. And the Furies have come to collect. The altar is broken. The stone that once dripped with sacrifice is cracked, blackened, abandoned. The temple doors, once heavy with gold and carved with the faces of gods, now hang open like the mouth of a corpse. No incense burns. No hymns rise. The old gods are silent. But the Furies are not. The wind howls through the ruins, but it is not the wind. It is something older, something wronged, something that does not die simply because men wish to forget. They were feared once. Worshipped in the dark, given blood and ash, named with trembling lips. Now they are cursed. Named demons. Monsters. Cast out by new tongues that claim to know a higher truth. The church bells ring in the distance, and a man kneels at the foot of a cross. His robes are heavy with prayer, his eyes turned toward heaven, his voice a whisper of salvation. He speaks of mercy, of grace, of sin washed away. The Furies watch. They do not forgive. They do not forget. They have no mercy. There was a time when sin was a wound that bled into the earth, a thing that could not be undone. A mother's curse. A brother's blood. A broken oath. The crime, the stain, the consequence, it was law, written in the bones of the world. There was no salvation, only justice. But now men tell another story. Now they speak of a God who bears their sins, who wipes them clean, who loves without wrath. They say the old laws are broken. They say the old punishments are no longer needed. They say the Furies are evil. The man at the cross prays louder. His voice shakes. He does not know why, but the air is thick, heavy, pressing. The shadows stretch too long. The silence curls at the edges of his mind, whispering that something watches. The Furies were once goddesses. Now they are demons. They have been rewritten, twisted into horrors, their justice turned to cruelty, their rage to wickedness. The ones who once stood for divine order are now cast into darkness. The ones who upheld sacred law are now accused of breaking it. But they are still here. They wait in the silence between prayers. In the breath between confession and absolution. In the space where guilt lingers, where shame festers, where the weight of sin does not lift, no matter how many words are spoken. They have not changed. It is the world that has turned away. The bells ring again. The man at the cross presses his forehead to the ground, begging for peace, for grace, for the mercy he has been promised. But the wind shifts, carrying a whisper too old to name. A voice without breath, a sound without source. Sin is not forgotten. His prayer falters. His blood runs cold. The Furies do not care for new gods. The Furies do not care for new laws. The Furies do not care for the names men give them. They remember what was done. And they are waiting. The courtroom is silent. The kind of silence that suffocates. The kind that thrums beneath the surface, electric with something unspoken, something unseen. A verdict is coming. A reckoning. The accused sits stiff-backed in his chair, a man with expensive hands and empty eyes. The weight of his crime should break his spine, but he does not bend. He waits, a flicker of impatience in his gaze, as if justice is something that happens to other people. As if his name, his power, the layers of armor he's built from wealth and status, will keep him safe. But in the gallery, among the rows of watchers, something moves. 3 women. No one notices them at first. They sit in the shadows, their faces unreadable, their presence unremarkable, until the air changes. Until the moment shifts. Until the silence thickens, pressing against the walls, squeezing the breath from the room. Their eyes are fixed on him. Unblinking. Unforgiving. They do not care for legal loopholes. They do not care for the performance of justice. They care for the truth. The jury files in. The judge speaks. The sentence is handed down. Lighter than it should be. Lighter than it must be. Somewhere, a woman sobs. Somewhere else, someone clenches their fists so hard their nails break the skin. The 3 women do not move. But the air grows colder. He feels it now. The shift. The weight. The judgment that no courtroom can erase. He wipes at his brow, adjusts his collar. Walks from the courthouse with his chin high, but his hands tremble. Because justice did not happen today. But vengeance is coming. The Furies are watching. They are not gods of law. They are not the ones who weigh evidence, who listen to testimony, who pretend that words can undo what was done. They are older than courts, older than judges, older than every man who ever thought he could cheat consequence. They were there when the first crime was committed. When the first hand was raised in violence. When the first betrayal split a soul in half. They are still here. They have been called many names. Once, they were divine. Then they were demons. Now, they are something else. The rage in a mother's eyes when her child's killer walks free. The fury in a survivor's voice when no one believes them. The burning, relentless hunger for justice when the world shrugs and turns away. They live in protests that shake the streets, in voices that rise together until they cannot be ignored. They live in the ink of headlines that expose the rot, in the trembling hands that hold up signs demanding that the guilty answer for their sins. They do not forgive. They do not forget. They are the scream that echoes long after the crime is done. The man who walked free that day does not sleep well. He feels something in the darkness. Something shifting. Something circling. His name is whispered in places he cannot reach, in the mouths of those who will not let his sins be buried. His world tightens. His steps become careful. Shadows stretch too long. Justice is a game. A performance. A thing that bends to power. But the Furies do not bend. And they are still watching. The battlefield stinks of blood and iron. The cries of the dying rise in thick, gasping waves, carried by the wind like an offering to something ancient, something waiting. The earth is slick with bodies, trampled beneath the boots of those still fighting, their breath coming in ragged bursts, their arms heavy, their swords dull with gore. And then, silence. Not the quiet of victory. Not the hush of peace. This is something else. A pause between beats. A moment before the storm. The men feel it before they see it. The weight in their chests, the way the air thickens and darkens, curling in on itself like smoke without fire. Some drop their weapons. Others turn their heads skyward, searching for something they cannot name. A shadow flickers across the field. A figure, then another, then 3. They are not human. They are not gods. They are the Dirae. The Romans have always known that war breeds horrors. But some horrors do not end when the swords are sheathed. Some linger, waiting for those whose crimes demand a reckoning. The Dirae are not mere ghosts. They are not the spirits of the dead, nor the gods of the living. They are something older, something untouchable, something that moves between the cracks of existence, slipping through the veil of war and madness with silent, measured steps. A soldier clutches his chest, gasping. He has killed many today. More than he can count. He does not know their names, only the way their bodies crumpled, the way their blood steamed on the dirt. He is a victor. He should be celebrating. But the Dire do not care for victories. One of them turns its head toward him. There is no face beneath the hood, no eyes, and yet he knows he is seen. He feels it like a knife pressing against his ribs, like a weight settling on his lungs. He tries to move, but his legs do not obey. He tries to scream, but the sound withers in his throat. They are coming for him. Not today. Not tomorrow. But they will come. Because the Dire do not forget. They were once the Furies, feared and worshipped by the Greeks, relentless in their pursuit of those who shed the blood of kin. But Rome is different. Rome is brutal. Rome demands gods that understand its hunger, its thirst, its unyielding need to conquer and consume. And so the Furies changed. They became dire, their vengeance sharpened to match the brutality of the empire that shaped them. They do not simply punish murder. They punish oaths broken in blood, pacts made with lies, victories built on betrayal. They do not rest. They do not bargain. And when they come, they do not come alone. The battlefield shudders as wings unfurl, black as the void between stars, vast as the weight of a guilty conscience. They do not flap or beat the air, they simply exist, folding and unfolding in ways that defy nature. The sky dims. The ground trembles. A great screech splits the silence, a sound that is neither beast nor bird, but something much, much worse. The soldier collapses, his body racked with shivers. He is still breathing, still standing, still living. But he knows. He knows. The Dire have seen him. His name is already written in their whispers, carried on the wind, etched into the bones of the dead. They will find him when the time is right. When his blood runs thinner, when his hands are wrinkled with age, when he thinks he has escaped their notice. They will be there, waiting in the shadows, their black wings stretching across his last moments, their screech the final sound he hears before oblivion. There is no appeal. No trial. Only the Dire. And they never forget. The air is thick with the weight of the damned. It presses in, damp and unrelenting, clinging to the skin like something alive. The walls of Dis rise ahead, vast and terrible, their iron towers stretching into a sky that is neither night nor day, only an eternal, pulsing twilight. The gates stand shut. Impenetrable. Inescapable. Then, a sound, high, shrill, and wicked. Laughter. But not the laughter of men. Something sharper. Something crueler. A shape moves along the top of the walls. Then another. Then three. They are watching. Dante does not breathe. His body is frozen, caught between terror and disbelief. Virgil does not turn his head, does not acknowledge them, only grips his arm tighter, as if that alone might keep him from unraveling. The Furies. Alecto, Megaera, Tisiphone. Ancient, eternal. Their forms shift and ripple, neither woman nor beast, but something caught between, a mockery of both. Their hair writhes, black and glistening, thick with serpents that coil and twist, hissing against their temples. Their nails are longer than daggers, sharper than the swords of the warlords now rotting in the depths of hell. Their eyes gleam red, not with fire, not with heat, but with a hate so old, so absolute, that it burns colder than ice. They are fury itself. Wrath given form. They lean over the battlements, grinning. Their teeth are black. Blood drips from their mouths, slow and thick, staining their lips as they whisper to one another, their voices a chorus of broken things. They do not scream, not yet. They do not strike, not yet. They do not need to. Dante trembles. The weight of their gaze is unbearable. They do not blink. Do not waver. He does not know how he knows, but he does. They see him. They know him. They have always known him. Alecto tilts her head, lips curling in mock delight. Her voice slithers through the silence. Let us call for Medusa. Dante's chest constricts. The name alone carries power, and the thought of it, the sight of her, the ruin of her stare, sends something twisting through his gut. Yes, Megaera croons, her fingers tracing the edge of the stone like a predator considering its prey. Let us turn him to stone. Tisiphone only laughs. It is a sound that does not belong in this world. It scrapes against bone, burrows into marrow, makes the skin prickle and crawl. Virgil is moving. His grip tightens. His voice, sharp and sudden, cuts through the rising madness. Turn away. Dante stumbles, nearly falling. His hands rise instinctively to cover his eyes, to shield himself from the horror above. His breath comes in short, panic bursts. The laughter rises. The serpents in the Furies' hair hiss louder. Their bodies shift, muscles coiling, preparing. They will not wait much longer. Virgil does not shout, does not plead. He does not beg them to stop. He does not bargain, does not bow. He calls for something greater. Something that even the Furies fear. A wind howls through the darkness. The air shudders. And then, light. Not the flickering red glow of hell. Not the sickly, eternal twilight. But something else. Something purer. Something stronger. The Furies shriek. They recoil, their bodies twisting, their mouths curling in rage, in hate, in something that should be impossible, a fear. The gates of Dis tremble. The walls moan. And then, the gates begin to open. The candle flickers, its feeble light casting long, restless shadows against the stone. The air is thick with something unseen, something heavy, something waiting. A heartbeat. Then another. Too loud. Too slow. The walls breathe, the silence pressing against the skin, damp and suffocating. Then, a voice. Low, trembling, broken. A whisper that should not be heard, but is. Out, damned spot. Out, I say. The words crack the air like a whip, shattering the stillness. She is not alone. She never is. Lady Macbeth stands, her hands outstretched, fingers curling against nothing, grasping at ghosts. The stain is still there, always there. It festers beneath her skin, deeper than blood, deeper than flesh. Her breath quickens, her chest rising, falling, heaving against a terror that cannot be seen, only felt. She rubs. Harder. The skin reddens, burns, peels. But the mark does not fade. The Furies watch. They do not speak. They do not need to. Their presence coils around her like a noose, their whispers slithering through the cracks in her mind. Alecto, her mouth twisted in a knowing sneer, sees the truth, there is no undoing what has been done. Megaera, her fingers twitching, relishes the unraveling, the way guilt festers like rot in the soul. And Tisiphone, Tisiphone, she waits, patient as the grave, for the final collapse. They have followed her since the moment the knife met flesh. Since the blood ran thick and warm, since the crown settled upon a head unworthy to bear it. They are in the walls of the castle, in the whispers of the wind, in the reflection of her own hollowed eyes. And yet, she does not see them. Not truly. She feels them, oh, she feels them, but she does not name them. She calls them something else. Hell is murky, she cries. Yes. Yes, it is. The Furies smile. Elsewhere, another ghost walks. The torches burn low in Elsinore, the corridors stretching long and empty, but Hamlet does not rest. He cannot. His father's voice still lingers, still gnaws at the marrow of his bones. The dead do not sleep. And neither does he. The dagger is cold in his hands, its edge whispering promises of an end to the torment, an end to the waiting. An end to this. But there is no end, is there? Not in life. Not in death. The Furies know this, too. They move through the castle, unseen but felt, threading through every shadow, coiling through every breath. They have watched kings fall before. They have watched sons weep before. This is nothing new. Nothing different. To be, or not to be. A question. A plea. A curse. Tisiphone tilts her head, considering. Alecto sneers, unimpressed. Megaera, Megaera, she laughs. There is no choice here. There never was. The truth festers, a wound left untreated, a sickness left to rot. The dagger will not save him. Revenge will not bring peace. Madness has already rooted itself in his bones, and they are merely waiting to claim what is left. The Furies do not force men's hands. They do not need to. They wait. They whisper. They watch as guilt poisons the soul, as anger blackens the heart. And when the moment comes, when the mind shatters and the body follows, then they take what is theirs. Hamlet grips the dagger tighter. The Furies only smile. The candle guttered, its flame shrinking as a breath of unseen air slithered through the chamber. A whisper, too faint to be real, pressed against the heavy silence. The ink on the page was still wet, smudged beneath trembling fingers. He did not dare turn around. The scratching of his quill had ceased moments ago, yet the sound continued, light, relentless, the scrape of something writing where no hand should move. His chest tightened. The words had summoned them. The Furies had never been bound to one age, nor one form. They crept between the ink-stained pages of every writer who dared to summon the weight of guilt, vengeance, and madness. The Romantics felt them in their bones, the Gothics fed them with their fears. They were there in the frozen lightning of Frankenstein's birth, in the fevered agony of Wuthering Heights, in the echoing, hollow terror of Poe's chambers. They did not inspire. They haunted. The wind rattled the windows. He pressed his hands flat against the desk, heart hammering, stomach coiled tight with something colder than fear. There were no chains to keep them out, no prayers to keep them away. They did not listen to men who bled their anguish onto parchment, they fed on them. And so the quill lifted. It would write, whether he willed it or not. Lightning split the sky above the Villa Diodati, casting monstrous shadows against the walls. Mary lifted her pen, her breath shallow, as though something unseen hovered just beyond the flickering candlelight. Make them feel it, she thought. The weight of their sins. The horror of creation. The torment of playing God and finding no mercy in the heavens. The creature would suffer. It would weep for its existence. It would howl at its fate, a thing born in defiance of nature, cursed to be unloved. And yet, who would suffer more? The wretched being, or the maker who had given it life? Somewhere, unseen, the Furies stirred. Alecto's lips curled at the cruelty of it, the endless chase of one's own undoing, the pursuit of a torment that could never be outrun. Megaera's fingers twitched, hungry for the quiet madness lurking beneath the words. And Tisiphone, Tisiphone, she only watched, knowing that every ink-stained page carried the taste of judgment. The storm raged on. Mary wrote. And the Furies listened. Far across the moors, the wind howled through Wuthering Heights, rattling the old house like a beast gnawing at its bones. Emily Bronte pressed her hands against the wooden table, her mind a churning storm of rage and sorrow. Heathcliff did not simply love. He consumed. His love was fury itself, vengeance carved into flesh and soul. Catherine's ghost would never rest, and neither would he. There were no endings, no peace, only an aching hunger, a love twisted so violently that it became indistinguishable from torment. Alecto tilted her head, whispering through the wind. Emily's fingers tightened. The moors stretched endless before her, wild and untamed, just as her story would be. Heathcliff would dig his nails into the earth, calling for Catherine beyond death, beyond sense. He would not kneel before fate. He would tear it apart. And the Furies would be watching. The ink darkened, pooling like spilled blood against the parchment. In the dim light of his chambers, Poe stared at the words before him, The candles glow barely enough to hold back the yawning blackness pressing against the walls. Once upon a midnight dreary, the raven perched, unblinking. A joke or a curse? No. No, there was no jest here. Only something vast and ancient, something that had always lingered just beyond the edge of sight. The grief of the lost Lenore, the hollow ache that would never be filled. The knocking that came, insistent, as though the past itself had found a voice. Poe let out a breath, slow, measured, but his fingers were white where they gripped the pen. The Furies had found him long ago. They had curled into his sleepless nights, settled into the weight of the absinthe in his veins. They had traced their fingers along his losses, whispering, whispering. Write it. Feel it. Let them all feel it. And so he did. The raven would never leave. Lenore would never return. The knocking would never cease. Never more. The quill scratched faster. The wind rose outside, shrieking through the night. The words were written, but the present remained, cold fingers pressing against the spine, breath curling against the nape of the neck. The Furies never truly left. The street lamp flickered, a sickly yellow glow bleeding into the fog. Footsteps rang sharp against wet pavement, echoing too loudly in the hollow hush of the night. A man walked alone, his shoulders hunched, his breath quickened, not from the cold, but from something else. Something unseen. Something waiting. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. They were already there. They had been there for centuries, slipping through the cracks of language, waiting in the margins of poetry and prose, seeping into the ink of writers who thought they were merely imagining them. The Furies did not fade. They changed shape. They became the voices whispering through T.S. Eliot's verses, the shadows lurking in the fantasies of novelists who thought they were the ones in control. But the Furies belonged to no one. Eliot had felt them. He had traced their presence through the crumbling ruins of modernity, in the ghostly fragments of meaning scattered across the wasteland. Phlebas the Phoenician, a fortnight dead. The tide swallowed him, carried him into oblivion, into the long, slow reckoning of his sins. The Furies did not scream here. They whispered, cold and insidious, their voices woven into the decay of a world too numb to recognize their presence. Hollow men. Hollow voices. A whisper of guilt that never quite fades. The man's footsteps quickened. His heart pounded. He had read the words. He had traced the echoes of those who had written them before. The Furies did not abandon their poets. They did not leave their novelists untouched. The pen was no shield. It was a blade, and they knew how to turn it back upon the hand that wielded it. A street lamp. Another. Another. The light should have been comforting, but it wasn't. It only cast shadows sharper. Somewhere, beyond the fog, a book lay open. A passage half-read. The taste of judgment on the tongue. Fantasy writers thought they had tamed them, bound them in the pages of novels, twisted them into creatures of myth, of magic, of vengeance wrapped in fiction. But the Furies did not belong to fantasy alone. They bled through every tale of wrath and reckoning, every story that spoke of guilt that would not rest, of sins that clawed their way back into the light. They had curled their fingers around the hearts of those who wrote of gods and monsters, of heroes who ran and villains who could not escape. They lurked in the prophecy-haunted pages of novels where fate was not kind, where justice was not gentle. They stood at the crossroads of choice and consequence, their presence undeniable, even when the author did not name them. The wind shifted. The man stopped. He should not have. The silence stretched long and heavy, pressing against his ribs. A laugh, low and knowing, echoed from nowhere. They had always been here. The canvas looms, its surface raw and waiting. A thick brush drags across the oil-drenched void, carving out a shape, something writhing, something dark. A face, but not human. Eyes, but not gentle. A mouth twisted into something between a snarl and a scream. The artist's hand trembles. The bristles catch, hesitate, then lurch forward again, as if compelled by something beyond mortal will. She is there. not just in the brush strokes, not just in the smears of shadow and blood-red streaks, but there, beneath the skin, behind the eyes, whispering through the paint. She and her sisters. The Furies. The relentless. The unforgiving. They have burned themselves into canvas after canvas, etching their rage into oil and pigment. In the flickering candlelight of old studios, they hovered over the shoulders of trembling painters, sinking into the eyes of every Medusa, every tormented soul, every figure locked in agony. In Titian's The Flaying of Marsyas, their presence coils in the twisted sinews, in the blooded hands, in the terrible stillness of the god's face as punishment unfolds. The Furies do not fade. They do not die. Their forms twist through centuries, morphing with every artist who dares to summon them. They are dark wings in Bugarozorests pursued by the Furies, their eyes black pits of vengeance. They are contorted figures in Goya's nightmares, seething in the ink of his black paintings, half hidden in the shadows but never truly concealed. Even when unseen, they are there, in the madness, in the wild brushstrokes, in the unbearable weight pressing down on the canvas like a scream trapped behind silent lips. But paint was never enough. They needed movement. They needed flesh. So they bled into film. The screen shudders to life, a flicker, a pulse, and then, darkness. A heartbeat. Then another. The Furies step forward. Not in name, perhaps, but always in spirit. The relentless pursuit. The eyes that never blink. The thing that will not stop coming. They coil themselves around Lady Macbeth, twisting through her trembling hands as she scrubs and scrubs, but the blood will not fade. They loom behind Norma Desmond, haunting the empty halls of her forgotten fame, whispering that she will never be free of what she has done. They slither through Carrie, curling around her rage, guiding her hands as flames rise and screams fill the night. They do not need to be named. They are the shadows behind Psycho's mother, the whisper in Black Swan's reflection, the breath behind the witch's silent woods. They are the electric tremor in Kill Bill's vengeance, the ghost in No Country for Old Men's unstoppable pursuit, the silent horror in the unblinking eyes of Michael Myers. They are everywhere. Every brushstroke. Every frame. Waiting. Watching. And they do not forgive. The subway rumbles beneath the city, fluorescent lights flickering, casting eerie shadows across the tiled walls. A lone boy grips the seat, knuckles white, the air around him thick with something unseen, something watching. The doors hiss open, and a woman steps inside. No, not a woman. Not really. Her coat shifts like it has too many folds, her eyes gleam too dark, too hungry. When she smiles, it is not with warmth. It is with recognition. She knows him. And he knows what she is. A Fury. Percy Jackson barely has time to react before the world explodes into chaos, the shriek of metal and the bellow of something far more ancient than the city above. She lunges, and suddenly the myths are no longer stories. They are teeth, talons, vengeance made flesh. They never forgot. They never forgive. This is how the Furies have lived on, twisting through contemporary fantasy, waiting in the spaces between childhood wonder and waking nightmares. Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson and the Olympians may have introduced them to a new generation, but they are not softened. They still chase. They still punish. Alecto, the relentless. Tisiphone, the avenger. Megaera, the unyielding. They have been called monsters, but that is a fool's mistake. They are not mindless. They are not simple. They are purpose itself, and they will not stop. And they do not remain confined to books. A sword swings. A dodge. A flash of red. The screen pulses with the rhythm of battle, and Zagreus moves in sync with death itself. The game Hades does not merely use the Furies as adversaries, it breathes life into them, makes them bleed, makes them personal. Megaera does not attack out of blind rage. She speaks with the sharp edge of history, her voice curling around old wounds, old grudges, older memories. She is not a beast. She is justice, and she is tired of Zagreus trying to outrun what he owes. And she is not alone. Her sisters lurk just beyond the screen, waiting, sharpening their claws. They will always be there. Even if defeated, they do not lose. That is not their nature. They are in the bones of the game, in the rhythm of the chase, in the way Zagreus can run and never truly escape. The Furies fit in video games because they are, at their core, the perfect pursuers. They are the boss fight that will not let you breathe. They are the whisper in the code, the inevitable reckoning. Whether it is Megaera in Hades, or the ceaseless hunt of enemies in Dark Souls, or the way a screen goes black and a voice murmurs, "You died," they are always there. Waiting. Watching. They are in every story where vengeance will not sleep, in every game where running is never enough. They are in the code, in the ink, in the breath between heartbeats. And they will never let go. The silence before a scream is the heaviest thing in the world. It stretches, swells, presses against the ribs, a heartbeat away from breaking. A woman stands in a courtroom, fists clenched so tightly that her nails carve half-moons into her palms. The man across from her smirks. The judge speaks. The gavel falls. Not guilty. Something inside her snaps. It doesn't shatter, it awakens. She doesn't wail. She doesn't collapse. She just stares. 1,000 generations of fury surge through her veins, through the marrow of her bones, through the centuries that have turned screaming women into ghosts, into warnings, into silence. But she will not be silent. Not anymore. The Furies have always been watching. They were there when Medusa fell, when her story was twisted and her name made monstrous. They were there when Cassandra screamed her prophecies into the wind, unheard, unbelieved. They were there when witches burned, when daughters were bartered, when justice had no face, no voice, no teeth. But the Furies have teeth. Alecto, her rage never-ending, festering, growing with every injustice. Tisiphone, executioner of those who spill innocent blood, who betray, who destroy. Megaera, the whisper in the ear, the creeping vengeance, the justice that cannot be outrun. They are not monsters. They are not villains. They are the consequence, the reckoning, the answer to every clenched jaw and swallowed scream. And they have never left. They live in every woman who is told to smile when she wants to scream. In every body that has been taken, every voice that has been silenced, every crime excused. They live in the anger that burns beneath polite conversations, in the laughter with two sharp edges, in the exhaustion of explaining, again and again, to deaf ears. They are in the marches, in the fists raised high, in the voices that will not be quiet. They are in the courtroom, standing beside every survivor who refuses to be shamed into silence. They are in the stories that reclaim what was lost, what was twisted, what was taken. They are not waiting in the shadows anymore. They are here. And they are angry. The courtroom hums with silence, a silence that pulses, that breathes, that waits. The judge's gavel is raised but not yet fallen, a frozen moment between verdict and destiny. Eyes dart across the room, some fearful, some pleading, some already resigned. The accused does not beg. He does not shake. He stands tall, as if justice is a game he has already won. Then the doors blow open. They are not seen at first. Not fully. Just a shift in the air, a pressure in the lungs, a flicker of something dark in the corner of the eye. But the moment stretches too long, the breath too shallow, and then, there they are. The Furies. Not robed in the fine silk of senators or cloaked in the weight of human law. Not bound by parchment and pen, by loopholes and technicalities. No, they are older than that, older than laws that shift like sand, older than men who twist justice into a weapon against the innocent. They do not ask for order. They demand retribution. Alecto's eyes burn with wrath unending, an inferno that has devoured centuries of injustice, never full, never satisfied. Tisiphone carries vengeance in the marrow of her bones, her presence a blade against the guilty throat. Megaera does not speak, not in words, but in the shiver down the spine, the slow, suffocating dread that justice has finally come, and it is not kind. The accused turns. For the first time, his hands shake. He knows what they are. He knows what they do. Laws bend. Laws break. The Furies do neither. They are the unrelenting force beneath every courtroom where the guilty walk free. They are the breath in the ear of the falsely accused, the rage behind every voice silenced before it could call for justice. They are the ones who have watched power twist verdicts into weapons, who have seen innocence crushed beneath the weight of politics. They remember the emperors who ruled through fear, who built their thrones on bodies and blood. They remember the dictators who rewrote laws in their own names, who twisted justice into a shadow of itself. They remember the trials where guilt was decided before the accused even opened his mouth, where verdicts were signed in ink made from the blood of the powerless. The gavel drops. A verdict has been given. A ruling has been made. But the Furies are not bound by the ink of mortal laws. They are bound only by justice, by vengeance, by the promise that no crime goes unanswered forever. They will not forget. They never forget. The wind howls through the streets, a guttural wail that twists around steel and stone, clawing against glass like fingernails raking across flesh. The city is alive, but something within it rides, something ancient, something that does not forget. Footsteps pound against pavement, hurried, frantic. Someone is running. Not from a person. From a feeling. A presence. She knows she's being watched. Not by cameras, not by the empty eyes of buildings that loom overhead like silent judges. No, this is older. This is heavier. It presses against her skin like heat before a storm. She grips her coat, her breath sharp, her mind screaming that she is alone, but her bones know better. Justice has been broken again today. Somewhere, someone has suffered beneath hands that will never see punishment. Somewhere, a verdict has been signed with a smirk instead of solemnity. Somewhere, a monster has walked away free, laughing into the night. The weight of it thrums through the city's veins. It hums in the walls, in the alleys, in the spaces between streetlights. And the Furies are listening. They do not belong to one time, one place, one myth. They are not relics, not dust-covered whispers from a past long gone. They are here, in the breath of every woman silenced before she could scream, in the blood that stains hands that will never be shackled, in the raw, unyielding rage of those who have had enough. They slither through courtrooms where guilt is a game, where power tilts scales that should have been balanced. They coil inside news headlines that burn with injustice, in every name that becomes a hashtag instead of a survivor. They do not fade. They are whispered under the breath of those who have lost faith in laws written by the same hands that break them. They are carved into every clenched fist, every shaking voice that refuses to bow. They are the ones who rise when the world says stay down. The ones who do not ask for justice, who do not beg for it like a starving thing, but who demand it, who take it, who become it. The woman stops running. She turns. There is no one behind her. Nothing she can see. But she feels them. Waiting. Watching. She does not need to be afraid. Not anymore.